Welcome to Real Talk. This week we're going to break from tradition, our usual movie talks, and we're going to talk about the fight this past weekend between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. And we're just going to get right in.
Let's do it. So, fight of the century. What do you think?
That is what they're calling it, isn't it?
That's what they called it before it happened.
I don't agree now.
No, neither do I.
It wasn't the best fight.
It wasn't the best fight that either one of them had.
No.
Which was sad, because it could have been so much more. It had the potential to be that fight of the century, to be as big as those other ones, as Schmeling and Lewis and Ali and Frazier. It could have been right up there.
It could have been. It should have been with all the hype that was behind it. The build-up of 5+ years.
Yep.
All the hype, all the money going into it. It should have been a lot more impressive than it was.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from a boxing point of view, and if you know Floyd Mayweather, then you can kind of expect what you get from him.
Yeah. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather was basically the Floyd Mayweather that I thought was going to come to the fight. The big thing was Manny Pacquiao in this fight, and he was not himself in this fight at all. He did not really follow the game plan that I thought that he was going to bring and that they said that they were going to bring. And I was really off-put by the fight from him, because especially when I was watching it, it was like Freddie wasn't saying anything in his corner. Manny wasn't throwing anything, or at least not that much. I mean, he had a few great flurries in a couple of the rounds, but for the most part, he was trying to play, I think, Mayweather's game against Mayweather. And that just doesn't work. That's like if Mayweather was going to try and fight Pacquiao's way against Pacquiao, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, especially where they're at in their careers, their fighting styles are well established.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really going to change that much. Yeah. And I really didn't understand why Pacquiao fought the way that he did. But then, of course, we had the whole press conference after where we know that Pacquiao had his rotator cuff tear. And so that made it a little bit different in my mind, and I at least understood what happened in the fight now.
Yeah, to me, going into it, I also believe like Pacquiao was going to be the X factor. Like, everyone knew Floyd Mayweather was going to do what he always does.
Yeah.
And, of course, like, Pacquiao is the challenger.
Yeah.
So, like, he really had to bring the pressure to Mayweather, which he didn't do.
Yeah, he really needed to. Like, I mean, you go back and you look at who had the most success against Mayweather, and it's the people who put the most pressure on him. Like, Oscar De La Hoya did a great job. I mean, he still lost the fight, but that was kind of a controversial decision. And Maidana, the first fight, that was a lot of pressure. And, of course, Cotto, that was a lot of pressure, too. And all three of those people had some success against Mayweather. And Pacquiao is better than all of them. But he didn't bring his A game to this fight.
That's the whole thing, too. If he would have done what he was supposed to do, it would have been a completely different fight.
I absolutely agree.
And you could place the blame in so many different areas. You can place the blame on Pacquiao. You can place the blame on his corner, just from the beginning and throughout the fight. And, I mean, you can place the blame on his injury if you want to. But,
I mean, it's really interesting to me that you find out about his injury after the fact. Because you go into that fight, and I've really, like, watching all the documentaries, everything, I've really thought Pacquiao was coming back the way that he used to fight, was ready for it. And, I mean, this is the biggest fight of his life. Like, there's never going to be a bigger fight than this. Unless they have a rematch, which may happen. But, I mean...
It might not be bigger than this, though. People might just... Because this fight left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth.
It really did, especially with the $100 pay-per-view and all that other stuff. And then it just turned out to be...
$100, unprecedented amount for a boxing pay-per-view.
And it didn't live up to the $100 at all.
It didn't, so it made everyone upset.
Yeah, including myself. And I'm a big fan of both of them. I love them both, but I was really, of course, rooting for Pacquiao in this fight. And to pay $100 for that fight, like, is just crazy. undercards were garbage, and the main fight was basically lackluster. Like, there was almost nothing to even talk about in that fight. And
there's a few talking points, but yeah, it really wasn't much
fight of the
to
century.
If you didn't see it, which my whole thing was like everybody need to see this fight.
Yeah,
even
me
if
too.
you're not a boxing fan.
Yeah, me too.
And after seeing the fight, like, people could have went without seeing
it. And then they're just like,
unfortunately,
oh, well, this is what boxing is, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah,
but that's really not what boxing is. I mean, it was two of the best coming together, but it just was not what it was meant to be.
Two of the best with completely different fighting styles.
Yeah.
And it could have just been so different of a fight. Could have been much more interactive.
Yeah. I do think if they have a rematch, though, I do think that it will be a way better fight. That's for sure. That's what I think.
That's a possibility, but at the same time, I don't know. We didn't really get to see, because like Pacquiao really wasn't doing what he should have been doing, but so we didn't really get to see, because we know how great Mayweather is. If what Pacquiao does at his best would still be enough for to beat Mayweather, though. Yeah,
that's true. That's
because he didn't really have any moments in the fight that really reflected his true self.
That's really what this fight was supposed to do. To see what Mayweather would be like against an opponent who was totally relentless and accurate and had the same footwork and speed that he does, which Pacquiao does, but he did not bring it at all in this fight.
No.
I mean, Pacquiao is an incredible fighter. He moves all over the place. It's really, really great. But ever since, like I've been saying, ever since that Margarito fight, man, he has been different. Like, he does not have that killer instinct anymore. He really doesn't. He doesn't want to hurt anybody anymore. And I really think it is sad because he's in the sport. I mean, it's not UFC. It's not like he's going to brutalize somebody and stuff like that. It is a sport. It is a physical sport. And sometimes you really do have to win by knockout. You can't leave all this stuff to the judges, and that's what he's been doing for all of his fights recently in like the past 5 years.
To bite him.
It did, just like the Bradley fight. The Bradley fight was one of the most ridiculous decisions I've seen. And, I mean, it just goes to show that you really need to put that pressure on. You can't just sit back in rounds, and you can't do what Pacquiao's been doing for his past fights.
I agree. He just isn't the same fighter as you said, and at the same time, like, he needs to do more in the fights. He really does. Like, certain boxers are knockout boxers, and certain boxers are scoring boxers.
Yeah.
And in this fight in particular against Mayweather is not a knockout boxer. He's a score points boxer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, Pacquiao can't compete on Mayweather's game. He has to bring his own game.
Yeah, exactly. Just like what I was saying. I mean, he really needs to... I mean, he can't be anybody but himself.
Exactly.
And he was trying to be something that he wasn't. And he's been trying to be that something that he's not for the past 5 years, and it's really come back to bite him. And I really do think that Pacquiao is the only fighter that can beat Mayweather, or that could have beat Mayweather.
Yeah. I remember we had this sort of discussion, kind of. It might have been when we watched the Pacquiao-Bradley 2.
Yeah.
If he had the instinct again, and if he could come back after, like, the Marquez knocked out.
Yeah.
The second Bradley was after Marquez, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and you were telling me that you think you saw, like, the old Pacquiao.
I definitely thought I saw hints of it. Because he was way more aggressive in the second fight than he was in the first fight. I really felt that he wasn't sitting behind in the rounds anymore. And then, and you could see that he was trying to go in for the knockout, but I think he was still being wary, just like Marquez said that he still thinks about that knockout, and I think he does.
Yeah.
But I really do think that if that decision never happened with the first Bradley fight, that Marquez may have never gotten that knockout. He may have never got into that position. I mean, I wouldn't call it a lucky punch, Marquez is an incredible
fighter. I don't think
fighter.
It was a lucky punch. He just had perfect timing and
it was perfect timing.
The right shot at the right time.
And to his testament, like he was getting destroyed in that round. Mm-hmm. Like he was getting destroyed, like on the verge of getting a knockout, but he kept his composure and he came back to deliver one of the greatest knockouts I've ever seen in my life against my favorite fighter.
Like Pacquiao just didn't have the guard at that particular instance in time.
I mean, it could be he heard the bell as soon as Marquez was throwing the shot, and he loosened up a little bit and then just got knocked out. I mean, it could have, but I don't know. I mean, Marquez was perfect in that instance right there, because he had so much he had so much pressure from Pacquiao. That's another reason why I thought that Pacquiao was really coming back with the fire, because I really felt he was going for the knockout with Marquez.
That's the thing too, which would have made this fight special, is that Pacquiao had so much to prove. Like he's been going through a lot of adversity in the ring and outside the ring.
Yeah, so much, and nobody really talks about that.
And this was his chance on the biggest of stages to shake everything and come back as the number one boxer.
Yeah, I mean,
and he looked like he was an amateur in a way. Like I wouldn't say amateur, but he just looked like he wasn't even on his level.
He just looked like a normal fighter against a great fighter. And they're both great fighters. They're both, I would say they're both equally as great. And I think that on that night, just Mayweather brought his A game and Pacquiao didn't.
That's the thing. You can't take away all of Pacquiao's accomplishments from this fight.
No.
But
I mean, Pacquiao is still going to go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time.
He will. But the thing is, like, the stage and everything around this fight. And
it was perfect, man. It was set up perfect. It was the pinnacle of what boxing could have been.
Like, started off, people were saying fight of the century. The century's a long time.
Because it's true. It really could have been the truth. Like, those two fighters together, like, they have dominated everybody in the sport, basically. And they have done it in two different ways. And it was so great when they did that At Last documentary where they built it up as like two twin stars, like both coming up from basically nothing and making their way through boxing, beating everybody in different ways, but then coming to the top together to finally meet. And like it could have been the greatest moment in our sports history that I know of. Like it could have been the greatest, and it was just not.
It's
not
sad
up to it
now because this fight's turned into just like a joke and just like a mockery of the sport in a way. Like everybody, like people want to sue Pacquiao. There's like some lawsuit out there.
That's crazy.
And for like what, $5 million or $20 million or something, I forgot what it is. And Mayweather, his ex is suing him for something.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Just like, is Pacquiao injured? Should he be fined or suspended? Like, there's so much just nonsense that this fight, it could have went this way, instead it went this way.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole pay-per-view.
Yep.
Should people have had to spend the money on that? Which is kind of what goes into the
lawsuit.
But it's just like Tyson Punch Out. I actually did go and check that out.
Did you?
Yeah.
That was some funny stuff, man.
It was just like...
That was some funny stuff.
In a way, like, they're kind of right, but in a way it was just like just a mockery of the whole fight.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was a bad fight. It just was not the fight that we should have seen, for sure. Yeah. And to have all these other things happen now in lieu of what happened in that fight with the lawsuit and all this other garbage. I mean, should Pacquiao have had postponed the fight, made everybody aware of the injury first? I mean, or would Floyd Mayweather back out of the fight?
That's the whole thing. I don't know the exact wording of the contract, but I don't know if there was like you can't postpone clause or something. But I could definitely see like if Pacquiao wanted to postpone it, Mayweather would be like, see, like they're camped in wanting to have this fight. Yeah. Like whatever the reason is, like no, I'm not gonna have it.
Yeah, and then it would just never happen. Yeah. So I can understand why Pacquiao didn't want to do that, but at the same time, I do think that maybe he should have done that. And then maybe had Mayweather fight... I mean, if he knew about this a month or two ago, or however long it was, where he had the injury, he could have at least said something. I'm sure Mayweather could have fought somebody else for May, and then they could have fought in September.
But the problem is, though, it's just like, it was so, I want to say, well hidden. Like, however long they knew about it, there's cameras around them all the time.
Yeah.
All the documentaries, all the press, all the media shots and Instagram posts, all that stuff, press around them all the time, and it's just hidden. And then, at the same time, Freddie Roach is so, like, cocky about how good Pacquiao is going to be. And, like...
And I was believing him, too, man. Like, I really thought, like watching all that stuff, like, Pacquiao was ready for this fight, man.
That's
like,
what you would... That's what everybody would think from seeing everything.
Like, I really, really thought that Pacquiao was really back to his old self now. I mean, I saw great promise in him again in his last few fights. Chris Algieri knocked him down 6 times. He didn't go in for the kill, but he... And, I mean, Chris Algieri may not be at the same level, but Chris Algieri was still a good fighter who has a lot of heart.
I still want to, like, discount that to not that many knocks. Some of those, I think, were slips and trips.
I agree. I don't necessarily think that there were 6.
Yeah.
There was probably 4.
He definitely dominated him,
Yeah.
though.
There was probably 4 knockdowns, though, that he did that were legitimate. But there was a lot about that water in the corner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would have to discount at least 2 of those. But Pacquiao totally dominated that fight. And that just shows the caliber of greatness that Pacquiao could be and that he should have brought to this fight, too. And, yeah, but, like, with Freddie Roach, man, I really thought that, like, this fight was... Like, this is the fight that he's been waiting for like 6 years. And maybe that's why he hasn't been fighting the way that he should have been. And now he has it in his mind that this is the fight that he's been waiting for. This is the opponent that he's been waiting to fight. And that he was going to bring that same ferocity that he had against Cotto, against De La Hoya, against all the other fighters in the late 2000s. Like, I really thought that he was going to do that. And then, like, to not hear Freddie Roach say anything in the corner, like the whole fight, you didn't hear him say anything.
I kind of, because when I watched some of the other Pacquiao fights, I noticed they mentioned usually they have the, however you pronounce it, Tagalog. Yeah, the interpreter, because that one guy that was
William Fernandez is his buddy from childhood. Yeah,
so he was doing a lot of talking, but Freddie Roach wasn't. But, so, I mean, maybe Freddie Roach wasn't feeling too well or something. I don't know, because he have problems.
Yeah,
but,
and he has been looking a lot worse recently.
He really has been looking pretty bad. So, I don't know, maybe he just put the burden on the other guy to kind of coach him more. But they weren't interpreting.
Yeah, nothing.
So, we don't really know what he was saying.
Yeah.
They didn't get the interpreter.
Yep.
I mean, because Freddie Roach was probably the one that was supposed to be talking.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that in a few other fights, too, where Freddie doesn't say too much. This is the biggest fight of his career. Mm-hmm. You need to say something, especially with the way that Pacquiao is fighting.
Yeah, especially, that's the thing. And that's what makes me think that, like, he really was injured, and, like, Freddie Roach just, he knew, like, there wasn't much they could do, so he was just like, well, just stay alive out there. I don't know, but...
At the time, I was really mad. Mm-hmm. Like, I was extremely mad at Freddie Roach and Pacquiao for the way that they did this, because I really felt...
He really should have been telling him to turn up the heat. Like, you're not winning this fight right now.
Yeah, clearly. And then for Pacquiao at the end to say that he won the fight, I mean, come on. I understand that he hurt Mayweather more than Mayweather hurt him, but the points comparison, there was no... Not even close.
Yeah.
And I can't believe people were flipping out on Max Kellerman.
Oh, that was
ridiculous.
That was uncomfortable to watch, though.
It was uncomfortable to watch.
He really...
But Max Kellerman loves Pacquiao. There's no doubt in my mind that...
he's been interviewing him forever.
And he has so much respect for Pacquiao.
Yeah, he does.
And, I mean, for Pacquiao fans, and I'm one of the biggest Pacquiao fans out there, like... They were like, Max Kellerman should be fired, blah, blah, blah. I was like, are you guys kidding me?
Because that's the thing. He wouldn't have gone and grilled him that hard if Pacquiao didn't say he thought he won the fight.
Yeah.
Like, Pacquiao should know, like, he knows.
He should have at least had the same thinking that Bradley had at the end of their first fight. Well, I'll have to go back and watch the tape.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. Not to just be like, I totally won that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't. And you know you didn't. There's no way.
It's like, sometimes it's like at the end of a fight, both fighters like put their hands up like at the end, just like to put on the show like that they're in good like shape and they won the fight or whatever. But
sometimes
inside,
it really is that close, you know.
Like them two are inside the ring together, like they know how the fight turned out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean when it's left up to the judges and decisions, you really don't know. So, but he knew he didn't win that fight.
Yeah, I mean, come on, like
he knew.
How can you not know?
So, all the questions, I think, were warranted because, I mean, if you're going to say you won that fight and you clearly didn't, like, people want to know why you say that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's upsetting, and I really think that Max Kellerman is a big fan of Pacquiao. I really think that he was rooting for Pacquiao in this fight. And at the same time, if I was Max Kellerman and I saw that fight, I would have a lot of questions, too.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too, because he's a big fan of him. Like, he's probably, like... I expected some more, man. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do?
Like, you're one of boxing's heroes. And
like, he's probably
what
like,
happened?
Maybe it was a little personal, the attack, because he might have felt hurt. Like, that Pacquiao went out like that when... Like, who knows? He might have been rooting for Pacquiao to beat Mayweather.
I really think that he was.
So he might have just... It might have been a little personal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's what the after-fight interviews are, though. Like... And it's always so funny to me because the two guys just got done beating on each other, and then they want to ask them these questions that might even like incite more aggression inside the two fighters.
I know, right? And then they just start like
right
fighting.
There. Yeah, like
round 13. Ding ding. But yeah, I mean, I think most of those questions were warranted, and I really don't think he was too out of line asking him. The questions that he did. I think you should have had more questions for Freddie. Like, at least ask Freddie, like, what was going on.
But it's funny, too, did you notice, like, before the interview or anything, like, Mayweather went over there to, like, their camp.
Yeah.
And, like, hugged and whatever.
Yeah.
Congratulated everybody before.
Yeah, and he had nice words for Pacquiao, which was nice. I mean, he always shows sportsmanship at the end of the fight. Like, I've never really seen him not show sportsmanship at the end of the fight.
Like, before the fight and stuff, he might be a little like, obnoxious.
Oh, yeah, and you could see him whenever he was hugging Pacquiao, which was another thing we should talk about. But every time he was hugging him, he was always talking to him.
He was... I'd
but
love
that's
to know
part
what
of
they were saying.
That's part of Mayweather's game, though.
A lot of hugging, a lot of talking.
Yeah. He's always doing that, getting into your head, and then because he's such a defensive fighter, he's waiting for you to attack him and then just counter that. And he's just getting in your head at the same time.
It's like if he gets hit, he just shrugs it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I mean, the mind is part of boxing, too. It's not all physical.
It is.
It's mental as well.
The mind is part of everything.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing, if you're lifting weights, if you're boxing, if you're in the UFC, if you're in football, any of those sports, I mean, anything you do, you have to have that mentality that goes into it, too.
Yeah. It's not just like a physical, just like brute jock.
No. And I mean...
Especially in boxing, though.
Especially in boxing, because it's more of a sport than more of the other physical sports are. And, I mean, like UFC and stuff like that. I mean, UFC is great, but it's more brutal and less of a sport.
And at the same time, you're dealing with someone on a human level.
Yeah.
So, like, you got to be able to read your opponent, and if you got to get in their head, you got to get in their head.
And it's only one-on-one,
and then you got to have your mental composure to not let someone get in your head.
Yep. Yeah, but Mayweather is the king of doing that. He's done that in so many of his fights.
Yeah. So when we talk about the first, I don't want to say throughout the whole fight, but definitely in the first few rounds, there was a lot of hugging.
Yeah, so much hugging.
So was that, you think, warranted? Should there have been?
No, of course not. I think that there shouldn't have been any hugging, especially with the way that this fight was building up, man. I really think that they should have just fought each other, no games. That's it. Just let Mayweather do his defensing without hugging, let Pacquiao do his attacking, and see what happens, because that's the way that the fight would have been the best fight.
So do you blame Mayweather for that?
No.
Because you got to blame the ref, right?
You got to blame the ref. Absolutely. Kenny Bayless was the worst ref to have in this fight. Mm-hmm. He's just such a bad ref to have in such a big fight like that because he never, ever takes control of the fighters. Like, if you keep seeing them hugging each other like that, you see Mayweather's not letting go, you have to do something to break them up. I mean, every single time he saw it, he waited at least 10 seconds to like, pull them apart. And, I mean, it's not... And then if Pacquiao was trying to hit him, then, like, Bayless would, like, say something to him. And it was like, come on, man, at least...
It gave Mayweather a lot of time to...
It did.
To talk.
It really did. And get into Pacquiao's head and get him frustrated and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that did play a big part in how the fight started out. And also, after that we knew that Pacquiao's injury was serious. I mean, I wouldn't really give Pacquiao any excuses. I really think that he is a brave fighter and that he's a great fighter and that he wouldn't say anything about his shoulder unless it was serious. He wouldn't be like, oh, well, I lost the fight because of the shoulder. He just said that because that's the truth, and I really do believe that. I don't think that he was trying to...
You don't believe that winners win and losers make excuses?
I don't think that he was making excuses. I think he was just telling people what happened.
Well, that's what Mayweather said, though. That's why I was saying that.
That's actually what he said?
Yeah. He tweeted that or something, yeah.
Oh. Well, Mayweather's going to be Mayweather. So. you gotta love and respect Mayweather, but I really don't think that Pacquiao was making excuses. I think Pacquiao legitimately had a problem, and it was apparent through the whole fight. Why else would Pacquiao throw less than half of what he ever throws in any other fight? It doesn't make any sense. Mayweather is great, but he is not that great to stop Pacquiao from throwing anything. Like, he does not put the pressure on that much for Pacquiao not to throw. So there was definitely something up, and you knew it from round one.
Yeah.
I mean, so I really wouldn't call that an excuse. I would just call it the truth of what happened, and it was just bad timing.
He did have surgery, I think,
he did.
Today.
Yeah, so I mean, it's legitimate. It's not like some whatever. And, I mean, with a rotator cuff, when you're boxing all the time, I mean, I could imagine that it just gets worse. I mean, if Kobe Bryant tore all 4 of his whatever rotator cuffs just playing basketball, imagine what that's like with boxing. You know what I mean? But it is what it is now. It's in the books.
Any other points to cover?
Well, what about Mayweather? Where does he go from here? And where does Pacquiao go from here?
Well, I think we all know that Mayweather is gonna... Well, we all know he's gonna fight again later this year.
Yeah.
But his opponent's not certain yet, but it's probably gonna be someone not on his level. Yeah. I predict. I mean, who is on his level right now, but...
I mean, he could go for Amir Khan, because he's been talking all that junk all the time about how, oh, Mayweather won't fight me, blah, blah, blah. Just go out in there and just beat Amir Khan. You know you can. Nobody's going to be surprised. I think he's going to go do that for his last fight. And I think most people think that too. But I do not believe for 1 second that Mayweather is going to retire at 49-0. I think he's gonna say that he retires, but there is no way he's leaving it like that. He's gonna go for 50-0.
That's his thing. He's got to keep people interested.
Yeah.
So he's gonna tell people he's not gonna do it, and then he's gonna come back and do it. Yeah. So there's more hype around it, and you can make more money.
Yeah. And if he does come back for that 50th fight against Pacquiao, then
there's a lot riding on the line for that fight.
Yeah, a whole lot riding on that, and. I really think that no matter what, Pacquiao needs to be 100% then. Don't take any other fights.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Nothing. So do you think they're saying if he gets a rematch, it's like April or May next year, do you think he shouldn't fight in the meantime? Just his next fight should be Mayweather?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And I think that would be great if Mayweather gives him that rematch, because I really do think that Mayweather also knows that was not the Pacquiao that we know, and that there's something wrong. I'm sure he knows that. And I'm sure it'll make a lot of money too. Probably not as much money as this one did, because people are going to be wary of it this time.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that that's the fight that needs to happen next year. And I think Pacquiao should not fight until then. He should concentrate on being 100%, letting that surgery heal 100%, working on his game plan, on his ferocity 100%, doing what he should have did for this fight.
And he'll kind of, I'd say he'd kind of be at an advantage if that's his next fight, then that's his goal and what he can work towards. Yeah. Mayweather still has another fight in between, so he's got to switch up his whole game plan to go against another fighter.
Yeah, but Mayweather's game plan is always the same.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings the same thing to every single fight. I don't really think that he needs to think too much about what he's doing. He goes in there, he feels out the opponent, and then he just does the same thing that he always does. Like, he's not really a versatile fighter. He's an adaptable fighter. Yeah. He can adapt to everybody and put his same style into every fight. But I wouldn't say that he's a versatile fighter. And I would say that Pacquiao is more of a versatile fighter than he is adaptable.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Because Mayweather can make any fight the way that he wants. As long as he sticks to his game plan and uses that intelligence and everything, and then he's able to just make the fight his own. And you can put Pacquiao in there with anybody, and he'll find a way to not make it his fight, but win.
I agree.
And they're both great fighters. I mean, I have no disrespect for Mayweather. I mean, I understand why people hate Mayweather, and I understand why people hate Pacquiao. But I love them both for different reasons, and I both think that all of the accolades surrounding them are warranted. Like, they're the best. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So hopefully this next fight will be the fight of the century.
I know.
Because there's no way.
I was so, hoping the fight lived up to the hype.
Oh my God, man. Me too. I was sitting there. I was freaking out.
Yeah.
I was just standing there with my eyes wide open.
It's like whenever I heard May 2nd, anywhere from anyone, I was just fight.
It was good.
Just so excited.
So, I mean, they've had so many great, exciting fights. And this one was just such lackluster, man, that it just... so many great fights.
Yeah.
Fight of the century, man, next time.
All right. So this was not the fight of the century, but hopefully next time we'll have a better fight so everyone can tune in and not have to complain. Because I know I have to do a lot of explaining that that's Mayweather's type of fight.
Yeah. And then I do think that people just discredited Pacquiao a lot, but I do really legitimately think that his injury was that serious, that he just couldn't fight the way that he wanted to, but he didn't want to not be in the position where he could never have that fight.
And I didn't think there was going to be a knockout anyways, and I know a lot of people, especially people that aren't boxing fans, were tuned in to see a knockout and see.
And that's all that they think of, They're like, oh, why is there no knockout or whatever? There's more to the sport than just a knockout or blood or whatever. If you want to see that, go watch the UFC.
Pacquiao
Don't watch boxing.
People out anymore.
I know, but I really thought that this was going to be the one time, man, that he was at least going to put the pressure on where he could hurt Mayweather in a way that he's never been hurt. He has more power than Shane Mosley. Absolutely. He's faster than any other fighter that he's fought. I know that he could hurt Mayweather. I know that he could have, and it would have been great to see Mayweather vulnerable like that.
Yeah, can you just imagine? Down. That's what I was thinking the whole time. Can you just imagine?
Yeah.
Would he have to change his whole personality?
I don't know. I mean,
even knocked down, but if he got knocked out, where does he go from there?
Yeah.
With the way that he talks and acts.
With the way that he is, his personality would have to change. He would have to be... I mean, I think it would humble him in a way that he hasn't really shown. I'm sure he's humbled somewhat inside, but he doesn't let anybody see that because it's his persona. Because he's lost before, not in professionally, but I mean, he has lost before. He was robbed of that of the gold medal, and like all that stuff. And I'm sure that all that stuff has created the way that he is now, and it humbled him in some way then, and drove him in some way to reach that goal that he has. And I mean, I really think that even if he did get knocked out or lost this fight, it would have been good for boxing. I really think so.
Maybe. I was rooting for Mayweather, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to root for Mayweather.
I want to see him get 15-0. I do.
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible if he does that. I mean, if he does that, then of course he's going to be top 3 boxers of all time. Absolutely. Pacquiao's right up there in the top 5 anyway. Maybe top 10, whatever, but he's definitely the second greatest fighter of our generation, without a doubt. And, I mean, it would have really been nice to see at least Mayweather get knocked down, though. Just knocked down.
It would have been
because nobody's been able to knock him down. And I know he's not the strongest. I mean, he has a great chin, and he's been hit with some really good shots. But most of the time he grabs when he gets hit with a really great shot. So that way, I mean, it's all part of his plan. So that way he can recover and whatever. But it would have been really interesting. And to me, it would have been as big of a shock as when Cotto and Martinez fought. In the way that Cotto dominated Martinez so badly. I was shocked. And that's the way that I was hoping to feel for this fight. Shocked, in a way.
Yeah.
Either way, I wanted to be shocked either from Mayweather or from Pacquiao. And neither one of them shocked me.
Pacquiao kind of shocked people.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. But, excite them, I guess. So, hopefully, next time we can see something of the caliber of, that Cotto Martinez
fight.
And
if the fight happens, it'll still be the century, so...
Yeah.
They still have a chance to make fight of the century.
Right. But then where does boxing go from here? After Mayweather and Pacquiao retire, which is going to happen...
They're both getting up there in age.
Yeah, I mean, next year, that's it. I don't think that they're going to fight after next year. Either one of them. They're both getting old. They both have other things that they need to do. I mean, who else? I mean, if Pacquiao really still wants to fight in boxing, who else is he going to fight?
Mayweather says that he doesn't even like boxing anymore.
I know. Yeah, he was saying that.
Yeah.
And that also, I thought that this fight was going to be a lot different because Mayweather's mentality going into this fight, it looked like it was different. At the weigh-in, everything looked like it was going in Pacquiao's favor, and that Mayweather was falling out of whatever. He just wasn't focused and whatever, but I guess that was just the whole game that he was playing because he was totally focused for this fight. But where do they go from here with boxing? After this bad taste that they left in the mouth, after they're both going to retire soon, who are the next huge superstars? I mean, we got Canelo, who's 24, and he shows great promise. There's Gennady Golovkin, who's a knockout artist in the middleweight.
He paints portraits.
He does, man.
With his gloves on the canvas.
But then, I mean, is he ever going to fight Cotto? And then Cotto's going to retire. I mean, who else is going to be the big name in boxing, the face of boxing? And I really hope that they do have that rematch and it lives up to the hype because it will save a lot of face of boxing and help propel that next generation of interest in boxing whatever superstar it goes behind.
Yeah. So, on that note, you guys can be left to ponder on who's going to be the next face of boxing. And I'm going to sign out for this week. I'll see you later. And until next time.